is 1922 and Asians are considered a danger to society.
Here's your...
Did you hear it?
Peanut is, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
You aren't by any chance the doctor of philosophy? Law? Medicine?
I don't think so, sir.
But are you sure?
Oh, yes, very sure.
I congratulate you.
Thank you.
Wow, sure seems like we're going further back every day, doesn't it?
Sure does. Let's toss it to our field reporter for the latest scoop.
It's 2022 and Asians are considered a danger to society. It's not quite as simple as it was 100 years ago, though. Now some people are arguing that Asians should be considered white. Now, this would imply that Asians do not face the discrimination and systemic barriers characteristic of a marginalized group. And this is important because it impacts the funding and resources available to Asian students. In November of just a year ago, the president of this year's university showed a graph with the label White and Asian Students and Students of Color minus Asians. This comes only a year after the backlash received by a Washington school district, which grouped Asian and white students together as well. This sudden trend isn't coming out of nowhere, though. I'll toss it back to you, John. Wait, what are we then? I know you think labels don't matter, but they are important. I mean, it's pretty clear to me what we are. I don't know why it isn't clear to you. Fine, let me pull up the receipts.
Now, the Immigration Act of 1965 is what really kicked off the model minority myth in America. Created as an apology to Eastern Europeans for the quota system, which negatively impacted Asians as well, it implemented preferences for skilled workers and families, ushering in a new wave of Asian immigrants who were highly educated and had skilled work lined up in the US. A Newsweek article titled Success Story, Outwitting the Whites, was published around this time and used to describe the success of Japanese Americans, and thus the model minority was born. Ironic how that Newsweek article touted Japanese economic success when just 40 years prior, all the generational wealth was stripped from West Coast Japanese Americans due to internment camps. It also disregards the underfunding in research, poor media representations, microaggressions. Shall I go on? I shall then. Asian Americans face institutional issues which are entirely ignored because on the surface it appears that Asian Americans are successful financially. This is a prime example of aversive racism, which is defined as a type of implicit bias exhibited by individuals who consciously endorse egalitarian values. Folks sure do love to say Asians are the model minority and claim colorblindness, but it seems every 20 years there's a new wave of violence against an Asian ethnic group, highlighting how our society is in fact not egalitarian. Japan bashing during the 80s due to the rise of the Japanese auto industry, anti-South Asian and West Asian violence in the post-9/11 era, and COVID-19 racism aimed at Chinese Americans and consequently other East Asian groups. People sure do like the Asians nice and complacent, but then bam! Suddenly Asians are the perilous villains once again. But this also begs the question, why must Asians get hate crime to have their experiences as marginalized people validated, especially when Asians experience many microaggressions? Now, John, what are microaggressions, you must be asking? I'm glad you asked. They are subtle everyday insults, slights, or mistreatments targeted at people because of their perceived identity. Asians often face these in the form of professional foreigner stereotypes. These slights over time wear a person and can result in insidious trauma, which is a form of identity-based trauma characterized by repeated low-level but harmful events. Race-based trauma has been found to have a negative impact on individuals cognitively, affectively, somatically, relationally, behaviorally, and spiritually.
Thank you for the update, John. Now let's talk about what we can do. There seems to be a strong wind blowing in from the West and from those who think the West is superior against critical race theory. Now, taking the proper educative safety precautions could prevent further damage from occurring to future generations and halting the model minority myth. Now, second, plain and simple, backlash. Many public institutions fear two things: poor public perception and profit loss. That is why these things have served as catalysts for change for much of history. And finally, for the administrative folks at home, very easy solution: categorize Asians in their own category, rather than simply grouping them in with a dominant racial group and implying that they have the same amount of privilege. That is all. When I first heard about this trend, I thought it was so stupid. I mean, I couldn't quite articulate why, but I sure can now. I know exactly what we are. We are Asian Americans, and we are people of color. Maybe I'm biased. I am Asian American, and I've dealt with discrimination personally. I've also tried to explain this to people before, and why the model minority myth is exactly that, a myth. But no, I'm sure my personal experiences and opinions and beliefs influence my reactions to this, but all the evidence goes to show that we are people of color.
We sure are.
A lot's changed from my 20s to yours. It seems like there's a lot of work left to do. See you in 3122.